Hello friends, this is your friend Bhushan. Jai Hind. I welcome you all to another edition of Daily News Analysis. In this particular edition, we are going to discuss some very important articles that were featured in the Hindu and Indian Express newspapers today. Mostly you must have seen the tit for tat action between India and Pakistan in the news in recent times. And we have extensively covered the related developments in our daily news analysis segments until yesterday. So today we are going to discuss some diverse topics which are important from the perspective of prelims as well as mains. So from the perspective of prelims, we are going to discuss four very important articles. The first one being Nipah virus threat in Kerala, again very important from the perspective of prelims as well as mains. Particularly health related issues are always on in focus, so most of the time you may be asked the question on that front as well. The second important article is about cybersecurity and India's anti-DDoS systems. Essentially, our finance minister, she requested these systems to be operational, considering cyber warfare emanating from Pakistan. Very important article from the perspective of defense, GS3, as well as GS2 to certain extent as well. Another important article that is crux is very from the perspective of GS2 international relations and from the perspective of prelims as well is understanding. We are going to discuss the growing nexus between Turkey and Pakistan, how that particular nexus is threatening India's own interest. From the perspective of prelims, understanding Turkey's geography is also important. So we are going to discuss some mapping aspects as well. Another important article is about India's Olympic bid and how that bid is actually creating so many issues for India. So we are going to take deep dive into recent India's Olympic performances. Where exactly is next Olympic going to be? What are some new sports that were added? Particularly when it comes to decoded section, which is important for mains, we are going to discuss one very important article that was featured in the editorial page of the Hindu. It is about sprouting sustainable and nutrition sensitive food systems. So from the perspective of food security, particularly in GS2 as well as GS3, this particular article is important. You can note down some important innovative solutions. So stay tuned. So the first important article that we are going to discuss is about Nipah virus. See, this Nipah virus is becoming a threat again, particularly to India's public health system. Particularly, this threat is very acute in the state of Kerala. So we are going to discuss some background of it and how, from the perspective of prelims, what is its origin and some other specific bits which can be asked in the actual UPSC prelims. Okay, so again, the backdrop is recent Nipah virus outbreak in the Malabar region or Malappuram region of Kerala. So essentially, we have seen the rise of Nipah cases. Most of the time, these zoonotic diseases are often emerges to the proximity of Western Ghats, particularly, where most of these diseases emanate from fruit bats particularly. So bat species is again the carrier for many of these zoonotic diseases. So when it comes to current outbreak, it is of Nipah virus, which is happening in the district of Malappuram in Kerala particularly. So essentially, what exactly is this Nipah virus? So understanding what exactly is this virus is very, very vital. See, Nipah virus, as I said, it is a zoonotic disease which means it is transmitted to humans through infected animals or contaminated blood. So, most of the time zoonotic diseases spreads from animals to humans. So, you must have seen, there is always this debate whether COVID is a zoonotic or not. Many times, in news we see this lab leak theory, you must have seen. But the current consensus is COVID virus in particular has been originated or rather may have been originated through the zoonotic means. Okay, but there is an growing evidence of lab leak as well. So let's see what comes out of those studies. But currently we are going to focus on Nipah virus. So what is the history of Nipah virus? The first outbreak of Nipah virus was among humans were reported from Malaysia and Singapore. So, from the perspective of prelims, this particular fact is also important. So, Nipah virus origin is not in India particularly. It is first reported, in Malaysia and Singapore in 1998 and 1999. Particularly, it takes its name from village in Malaysia. This is important. So, essentially, the name Nipah is based on the Malaysian village. Okay. So this fact is very, very important from the perspective of prelims. So, what are some symptoms? Again, fever, headache, cough, sore throat, difficulty in breathing. All these are common symptoms of this particular fever. As I said, Nipah virus threat is again growing in Kerala. So how this particular disease is transmitted? The disease spreads through fruit bats or flying foxes. As I said, most of the zoonotic diseases origin in Kerala particularly is through flying foxes, particularly fruit bats. Okay, who are natural reserve hosts for Nipah and Hendra viruses as well. The virus is present in bat urine and potential and bat feces. So we will see how the transmission exactly goes about. So this particular schematic here represents how Nipah virus is transmitted to humans. You can see this fruit fly is again a carrier. Nipah virus infects the fruit fly, then fruit fly through its blood, urine or saliva. Actually, most of these fruit flies are found on the date palms. Okay, or essentially they may be found in its sap naturally. And this contaminated fruit or sap, when it consumed by the animals, then the animal get infected. If the animal comes in contact with the human, then human gets infected. Or there is if the contaminated fruit is actually ingested or eaten by the humans, then that virus can directly transfer to humans as well. But overall, you can see in humans the mortality rate or fatality rate is around 40 to 75%. So this disease in particular is very, very fatal. Okay. So how fast does Nipah virus spread? This fact is also very, very vital. As I said, its fatality rate is very high, but how fast does it spread? So according to WHO, Nipah is relatively high case fatality ratio. As I said, 40 to 75% is a fatality ratio, and that is very, very high. It is very high death rates contributed to low transmission. See, most of the time you must have seen the transmission rate and mortality rate are mostly in general are in reciprocal proportion. For example, if the transmission rate is low, then the mortality rate or death or the death rate can be high, and vice versa. So essentially, if when it comes to Nipah virus, the mortality rate is high, that means the transmission rate is low particularly. So what exactly is reproductive number R0? R0 is a measure of how quickly the virus spreads in the population. So essentially R0 is the measure of the transmission of the virus. So the reproductive number R0 is the previous Nipah outbreak was around 0.48. So it is not very high. Okay, so the transmission rate is low when it comes to Nipah virus, but the fatality rate is high when it comes to Nipah. A less value, particularly less than 1, means less than 1 person is being infected by an already infected person. In such a scenario, the outbreak is expected to diminish relatively quickly. So as I said, the low transmission rate also is an indicator that the outbreak can be diminished quickly. So there are multiple ways you can control such low transmission rate, high fatality viruses. Okay. So what are some other zoonotic diseases? We have zoonotic bacterial, viral, parasitic and fungal zoonosis as well. So it is not just viruses, but we have all these bacteria, from bacteria to parasites to fungal zoonosis as well. So, the examples are important. So, just go through the examples of zoonosis, very important from the perspective of prelims. This is the practice question for you. Just comment your answer in the comment section. So, the next important article that we are going to discuss is about DDoS cyberattacks. So, what exactly is this DDoS? Okay, first understanding this DDoS is important. So, you must have heard many times in news, particularly there is a DDoS attack, the systems are down. So, mostly, this cyber attack system, the cyber attack threat is emerging as a national security threat now because of the Pakistan's alleged, not alleged per se, but proven cyber attacks as well. So Pakistan is sort of waging a disinformation, misinformation war at the same time. So the war between India and Pakistan is actually is going on an escalatory spiral. That is true, very true. But at the same time, Pakistan is resorting to hybrid warfare techniques as well. So we have seen the use of drones, we have seen use of air defense systems and all those things. But again, there are reports of cyber attacks on India's critical systems as well. So one of the system is banking. So our finance minister has instructed this anti-DDoS system so that our banking operations becomes smooth in case there is an emergency situation of attack. Okay, so this particular article is important from the perspective of mains as well as prelims. Okay, so what exactly is this DDoS? DDoS, as I said, DDoS, it is distributed denial of service attack. So that is what is the long form of this DDoS. So what exactly is this DDoS attack? So it is an cyber attack in which the attacker floods a server with internet traffic to prevent user, particularly user of that system, from accessing connected online services and sites. So essentially, the attacker floods the system with heavy traffic, and essentially you must have seen many times, it is because of its powerful nature, it is a very common tool for hackers particularly to attack important systems with DDoS attacks. So whenever you come to know about a website being brought down, what does it mean? It generally means the website or that particular site is under DDoS attack. So essentially, what exactly is the modus operandi of these DDoS attacks is, again, as I said, deliberate heavy traffic on the website, then it leads to overloading on the website, and then eventually the whole system crashes. So it is one of the most used cyber attacks techniques or threats world over. So can you imagine this threat is essentially it can bring down whole cyber systems. So essentially the first recorded DDoS attack was way back in 2000. So from 2000 onwards we are seeing these cyber attacks. So essentially with the development of cyber systems, from that point itself we have seen the cyber attacks in the form of DDoS as well. So what exactly the current news? The current news is about a cyber security threat emanating from Pakistan, and how India is going to tackle threats to our banking system. See, most of the time, digital India, particularly digital public infrastructure, and we have seen the tremendous growth in internet banking, digital banking particularly. Considering all these factors, the banking sector is very, very vulnerable to cyber attacks like DDoS. So essentially, that's why anti-DDoS systems have been evolved, have been developed. So under it, there are directives to banks. So what are those directives? All banks were directed to coordinate with RBI and CERT for rapid responses to cyber incidents. CERT particularly is the foremost agency when it comes to managing the cyber attacks in India. We are going to briefly see what exactly is this CERT and what is its work exactly. So banks must appoint 2 dedicated senior officials at headquarters, one for reporting cyber incidents and another for ensuring operational continuity. So essentially, as I said, anti-DDoS systems have been set in operation. So under it, there are 2 sort of officials. One senior official who will look into cyber incidents, and another will look into the operational continuity. Okay, so essentially, as I said, CERT along with relevant agency in real time will actually observe these sort of anti-DDoS systems. So essentially, what exactly the article argues? The finance minister has given again some sort of instructions to banks so that we have uninterrupted banking services in case there is an emergency at the border. particularly. Seamless cache availability, from seamless cache availability to uninterrupted UPI to internet banking, all these things are very, very vital. So these are our vital banking systems, to protect them from cyber attacks. The finance minister has given some instructions. So this slide here particularly argues what exactly is this anti-DDoS system. So as I said, DDoS are the cyber attacks, and to manage those these attacks, we have anti-DDoS systems. So what exactly is involved in these anti-DDoS systems is from scrubbing centers to traffic monitoring and anomaly detection to rate limiting to DNS level mitigation. See these sort of systems are there under anti-DDoS systems. From the perspective of prelims, these systems, knowing these systems are not that much important. You just know what exactly is the functioning of this system. Okay, you do not have to go too deep into this particular aspect. But you can see there is cloud-based DDoS protection services as well. So from Cloudflare to Akamai to Radware to AWS Shield, we have cloud-based anti-DDoS systems as well, which are operational. So this particular fact is also very important. So on cloud also we have anti-DDoS systems. So from the perspective of prelims, that is also very important. See how the anti-DDoS system exactly works. So when attack begins, again we have to detect the attack, then we have to analyze it, then we have to mitigate it, and then again we have to make the whole system alert and report to such attacks. Okay, and essentially repel those attacks. Okay, so this is the chronology of that particular anti-DDoS system. So how anti-DDoS system will be able to tackle these cybersecurity threats is shown here. So understanding the importance of these systems to India's financial sector is also very, very important. So from uninterrupted ATM to stable banking to payment resilience to digital protection, these four aims are very, very vital for robust banking system, which is very critical for India's own national security in the current volatile environment. So to secure our banking systems, we have this anti-DDoS systems essentially, and finance minister has given many instructions to secure these very critical systems. So what exactly is this CERT-in? See, from the perspective of prelims, you must know the mandate of CERT-in to a certain extent. CERT-in stands for Computer Emergency Response Team India, and it is under Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. Very important from the perspective of prelims, it is under MeitY, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. It works on cyber security related incidents. So this is one of the foremost agencies when it comes to cyber security issues for India. It was established way back in 2004 under Information Technology Act of 2008. Okay, so essentially under IT Act it has been established way back in 2004. So CERT-ins, what are some core functions of CERT-in? So essentially from incidents response to threat detection, coordination, cybersecurity exercises, information sharing, training and capacity building, all these are very vital functions of CERT-in. So just go through them from the perspective of particularly mains. From the perspective of prelims, you just have to know what exactly is the DDoS attack, what exactly the work or function of anti-DDoS systems, what are some elements involved in it. Another important fact about CERT-in is important, under which ministry it is. So these facts are important from the perspective of prelims. Okay, so as I said, compliance and regulation from there are some compliance and regulations which are given by cyber security emergency response team, CERT-in particularly. So from mandatory reporting of cyber incidents within 6 hours to require organizations to store logs for 180 days to oblige VPN providers, cloud services and ISPs to maintain user data. So these are the regulations and compliances issued by CERT-in in recent times in 2022. So particularly these are some important points when it comes to prelims as well. So you may be asked the data points or facts in that regard. Okay, so just go through them. So these are some recent developments, not that much important. So this is a practice question for you. If you understood the article correctly, you will be able to answer it. Just comment your answer in the comment section for this particular question. So the next important article that we are going to discuss is about Turkey-Pakistan Nexus. See, this article particularly is very important from the perspective of prelims as well as mains. From the perspective of prelims, you must know the mapping aspects of Turkey because most of the time this country is in news. But from the perspective of mains particularly, we have seen particularly the emergence or the growing nexus between Pakistan and Turkey. And in recent times, we have seen even Pakistan using those Turkish drones to attack India. So essentially, there is a growing nexus between these two countries, which is actually threatening India's national interests. So we are going to take a deep dive into this particular article. Again, important from the perspective of GS2, GS3, defense. Okay. But again, as I said, this is the news which was featured in the Indian Express, and there was explained article about the Nexus as well. So essentially, in the backdrop of Pakistani attack with Turkish drones on India, we must understand the historical angle of Pakistan-Turkey as well. So historically, Islamic solidarity connect these two countries. We have seen, Turkey and Pakistan are often defenders of pan-Islamism movement, dating back to Khilafat movement when Muslims supported Ottoman Caliphate. Okay, so both these countries believe in pan-Islamism, and both are majority Shia, majority Sunni Islamic countries. So essentially, Erdogan's political Islam since 2003 provides the emotional and ideological glue for the relationship. So essentially, the Turkish president, the so-called Mr. Erdogan, is actually the anchor around which the relationships evolved. So essentially, there are Cold War alignments earlier as well, joint members. Both these countries are joint members of CENTO and RCD. Mutual military support during geopolitical crisis. For example, Pakistan and Turkey has mutually supported each other in various conflicts in 1964, 71, etc., etc. Erdogan's dream of neo-Ottoman vision. So essentially, Erdogan is trying to expand the Turkey's influence in the Middle East, and essentially what Erdogan thinks is Pakistan being a reliable Muslim ally in its dream of pan-Ottoman vision. So particularly, the anchor is that Turkish president particularly. So arms transfer and co-development is also very important angle for this particular relations. You can see, according to SIPRI report, Turkey's global arms exports surged in recent times. We have seen, Turkey being involved in Azerbaijan conflict as well. Turkey actually provided, its own drones to Azerbaijan. So in that conflict, Turkey is heavily involved, although indirectly to a certain extent. That means Turkey's defense exports increased, and Pakistan in that period emerged as a second largest arms customer after Qatar for Turkey. So that, that defense relationship is also become an anchor between the nexus between Turkey and Pakistan. As I said, there are Bayraktar TB2 drones, command case cruise missiles, and Assist Guard Songar drones. These Songar drones are recently used by Pakistan to attack India. So as I said, there is a growing nexus, defense nexus in particular between Pakistan and Turkey. So naval modernization programs is there between Pakistan and Turkey as well. There is a defense contract, particularly by Pakistan Navy with Turkish Navy. Then there is Augusta 90B submarines, as I said, being midlife upgraded by STM, a Turkish state-run firm, circumventing NATO origin export control regime. So essentially, there is a growing sort of alliance between Turkey and Pakistan. So there are joint exercises and operational familiarity. For example, we have seen naval drills in Arabian Sea, Gulf of Aden between the two countries. Very limited or no military exercises between Turkey and India. Okay, there are no military exercises between Turkey and India at all. Recent evidence of strategic collusion. There is a strategic collusion, as I earlier mentioned. The attack on India is one such incident with Songar drones. Essentially, there is actually incidents of Turkish C-130 Hercules aircraft landed at Karachi and Ada class corvette docked, possibly facilitating this shipment. So this fact is not that much important, but you must know that Turkish drones are used by Pakistan in recent times. Okay. So as I said, there is diplomatic and geopolitical alignment between Turkey and Pakistan as well. When it comes to issue of Kashmir, all the time Turkey takes the side of Pakistan. So essentially, Erdogan called Kashmir a bleeding wound of the Muslim world. These are very, very, harsh words to describe this particular situation. Again, India has responded by most of the time. India responded with a rebuttal of its own to this Turkish actually intransigence. So and also India has expanded its ties with Cyprus and Greece. Cyprus and Greece are immediate neighbors of Turkey. So formation of alternative Muslim alliances. Turkey, Pakistan, Qatar and Malaysia attempted to form alternative Muslim bloc via Kuala Lumpur summit. Okay, so they tried to sort of become the leaders of the Muslim world with the 4-country alliance, but under the pressure of Saudi Arabia, Pakistan withdrew at the last time. So essentially, at that point of time, Erdogan actually criticized Saudi Arabia as well. So in a way, Turkey's ambition of emerging as a leader of pan-Islamic world is behind these incursions particularly. And there is a trilateral grouping between Turkey, Pakistan and Azerbaijan. That's why this is trilateral is emerging between these 3 countries as well. So how India is actually tackling this nexus through its geostrategic countermeasures is also very important aspect. So leveraging regional rivalries, Indo-Greek and Armenian nexus. Again, Indo-Greek and Armenian nexus is emerging. We have seen Eastern Mediterranean strategy, support for Sea Republic of Cyprus opposed by Turkey, deepening defense and diplomatic ties with Greece, naval exercises to anti-drone and cyber warfare. So we are actually deepening our relations with Greece at the same time as well. So we have seen, India is supporting Armenia. So particularly Armenia has emerged as largest arms supplier. India has emerged as the largest arms supplier to Armenia by 2024. What Armenia imported from India is Pinaka rocket systems, Swati radars, Akash missiles and armored vehicles. So essentially, to counter Turkey, Azerbaijan and Pakistan bloc in the region, India supported Armenia in that particular conflict. And again, one emerged as Armenia's leading arms exporter particularly. There is a strategic embrace of Gulf powers. There is, growing alliance between India and Gulf powers like Saudi Arabia and UAE. So we have from joint operations to, sovereign wealth fund investments into India. We have seen this growing alliance between India and Gulf countries. Indo-Pacific and IOR maritime superiority. Turkey's push into Indian Ocean region, military base in Somalia, arms exports to Maldives. So essentially, Turkey is trying to get a foothold when it comes to Indian Ocean region. But again, India has responded with its own measures through strengthening Quad cooperation. Quad particularly involves US, Japan, Australia, India. Okay, and permanent deployments and naval base expansion in Mauritius, Seychelles, and Andaman and Nicobar. So India has responded to that threat as well. So what are some economic and infrastructural deterrents that India has deployed? So development of IMEC, India, Middle East, Europe corridor. This is one of the foremost outcomes of G20 presidency of India. And interestingly, you must have observed, it bypasses Turkey completely. In a way, at that point of time, Turkey's President Erdogan actually criticized India for this, and actually Turkey proposed Iraq development road. By the way, this road is going nowhere, by the way. So essentially, there are certain developments in IMEC, but Iraq development road is going nowhere currently. Exclusion from supply chain. India has not included Turkey in any of its strategic sectors. That is but obvious. When it comes to our national security, we cannot cannot depend on such adversary. So particularly India has taken harsher stance when it comes to Turkey. Okay, so Turkey is no longer a peripheral irritant for India, but it is emerging as a big threat now. Okay, a central cog in Pakistan's military supply chain, ideological amplifier, increasing active presence in the Indian Ocean and South Asian region. So on all these fronts, Turkey is emerging as a major threat to India's interest. And India's response has been very, very measured at the same time as well. So we have seen from, from economic to defense related measures, India has responded to this particular threat by expanding its strategic alignments and also, expanding its defense ties in the region as well. So from the perspective of prelims and, knowing the border countries of Turkey is important. Greece, Bulgaria, Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Iran, Iraq, Syria. So essentially, Turkey is bordered by land border, particularly Turkey has land border with these 8 countries. So Iran, Iraq, Syria, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, Bulgaria, Greece. Very important from the perspective of prelims. You must know there is a high possibility that UPSC may ask the question on from the perspective of mapping on this particular country. Okay, this is a practice question for you. Just comment your answer in the comment section. So the next important article that we are going to discuss is about India's Olympics bid. See, from the perspective of prelims, you must know, some sports related news and obviously Olympics is huge when it comes to, when it comes to India's own achievements, or rather, very limited achievements in Olympics. So our goal is always to increase our medal tally in Olympics. So from that perspective, this news is important from the perspective of prelims. You must know, India, being emerging as a leader of global South, is actually bidding to host Olympics in 2036. Okay, and Ahmedabad is emerging as a major city to host those Olympics. So, but the current research suggests that in a short term, Olympic will actually, will have very short term impacts when it comes to health and economic benefits. Okay, so it is sort of a counter to rather. So this is counter to why India should hold Olympics in 2036. Okay, so from that perspective, these bits are important from the perspective of means. Okay, so potential outcome of hosting Olympics, it is assumed that by hosting Olympics, we will have tremendous economic growth, from tourism to health awareness to other such things. Okay, it can create new infrastructure as well. So it will boost the investments in India, and India's investment related growth will actually push India's overall growth. Okay, so it is assumed most of the time that Olympics will bring all those things, but the study contradicts that. So from happiness to adoption of more active lifestyle to rise as a world class sporting nation, all these impacts are very short term. So the study argues the economic impact on healthcare is also very short term. So for example, it gives the example of Athens 2004 games. The games left behind a crumbling infrastructure and a financial burden that contributed to Greece's latter economic crisis. So one of the foremost reasons for Greece economic crisis is the hosting of Olympics by Greece in Athens in 2004. Particularly, impact on healthcare is also very short-lived. For example, London Olympics may have saved around 4.2 million pounds in healthcare costs. This was dwarfed by almost 40 million pounds spent on promoting grassroots physical activity. So can you imagine, spending almost 40 million pounds and getting in return almost around 4.2 million. So essentially it is just a 10% return on your investment. So the study counters the assumption that Olympics bring the growth. So essentially, it is sort of a pessimistic view when it comes to hosting Olympics. So we have to take it with a pinch of salt in that regard. But from the perspective of prelims, you must know some facts about Summer Olympics that are going to happen in 2028. So Summer Olympics will happen in Los Angeles in US from 14th July to 30 July in 2028. This will be second time Los Angeles will host the Olympics, particularly, and in 1984 it first time hosted the Olympics as well. So what are the new sports which are added in 2028? It is cricket, flag football, non-contact American football, squash, lacrosse, and baseball softball. Okay, so essentially these are the new sports which are added in 2028. About 15,000 athletes will take part. Number of events, over 800 events are there. Okay, with more than 50 sports. So India's bid to host Olympics, as I said, essentially Ahmedabad is emerging as a major city for hosting the Olympics. The IOC is expected to finalize the host city by 2026 or 27. So by 26 or 27, we will get to know whether India will host the Olympics or not. But India has actually put its bid to host the Olympics. The bid is ambitious. It is with potential budget reaching up to $7.5 billion. Can you imagine? If you have to host Olympics in a country, you have to spend almost $7.5 billion. So that is huge investment. But again, what are some schemes when it comes to, Olympic preparedness? Rather, to improve our Olympic style, government has taken very important steps. In that regard, the first important scheme is Target Olympic Podium Scheme, top scheme, very important from the perspective of prelims. Just understand some important facts about the scheme. So it is under Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports. Okay, there is scheme of assistance to national sports federations as well. There is Khelo India. Again, Khelo India is emerging as a major event where you can find the local talent. Okay, so the local talent can get the required stage at national level through Khelo India games. So this is the practice question for you. Just comment your answer in the comment section. So in the decoded section, we are going to discuss one very important editorial that was featured in the Hindu particularly. It talks about sustainable and nutrition sensitive food systems. So this is important from the perspective of, GS2, hunger and poverty related issues, as well as GS3, food security related issues. So author here argues that we have to have sustainable and nutrition sensitive food system. See, most of the time our food system is, particularly India's food system, is based on the binary of wheat and rice. Okay, most of the time nutrition is ignored in this sort of food system. So most of the time, diversifying the food habits and food system is also very important, so that we will have the nutrition security at the same time. So essentially this article gives some ideas how to do that. So let's dive into it. So this is this particularly is the PYQ. It majorly talks about National Food Security Act of 2013. Okay, so we are not going to cover NFSA 2013. We are going to cover the innovative solutions given by the article. So what the article argues, the sustainable food systems aims to provide food security and nutrition for all. So essentially the meaning of sustainable food system, see, whenever it comes to sustainability, we have to ensure not just security but sustainability in the long term. So essentially it aims to provide food security with nutrition for all, while minimizing environmental and social impacts and ensuring long-term economic viability. As I said, we have to ensure long-term sustainability of food systems. This means considering entire food chain from production to consumption, implementing practices that are economically profitable, socially beneficial and environmentally sound. So we have to have all these angles, environmental, economic, social as well. The goal here is to create system that can meet the needs of present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So essentially this is what the sustainable development is. This is the standard definition of sustainable development you must be knowing. So nutritional challenge is a perfect storm. So what are some nutritional challenges apart from climate change and the threat of global warming and associated issues? There are some global scenarios associated as well. So globally, food system failures cost nearly $12 trillion. Can you imagine? We have the cost associated with the food system failures is about $12 trillion. So it is a huge cost. So obviously this is due to climate change and related issues as well, the failure of farm systems overall, and natural disasters. Obviously that impact is also there, exacerbated by climate change through health, nutrition and environmental. Health and nutrition is another aspect of it. What is the scenario in India? Particularly NFHS 5 2019-21. See, this data is very, very important, particularly when it comes to GS3. you must support your arguments with data. Most of the time you must have seen UPSC doesn't give good marks in GS3 to the students. Why? Because most of the time, these questions are very very content heavy. So you must say, you must be more objective when it comes to answers. You cannot give subjective point without the evidence. So you must have the data. So NFHS 5 data is one such data. You can use it all the time. For example, under that particular survey, we found nearly 194 million Indians are undernourished. Among children under 5, we have 35.5% stunting, 32.1% underweight, 19.3% suffer from wasting. Increase in overweight and obesity, which is affecting around 24% of women and 23% of men. So there is an epidemic of double hunger as well. There is, malnutrition, at the same time there is obesity. So about 57% of women of reproductive age are anemic. These data points are important. As I said, you must remember these data points. According to FAO, what is the situation according to FAO? According to FAO, 55.6% of Indians are unable to afford nutritious food, with cost rising from $3.36 on PPP per day in 22 to 2.86. Which was there in 2017. So we have seen, almost 56% of Indians not affording nutritious food. So obviously these are global standards. So, and they can be variable or they can be subjective as well. So considering all these challenges, how we can actually transform our food systems? Very important, some innovative ideas given by the article. So we must have multi-sectoral approach, involve governments, business, communities. We should have the multi-dimensional approach to tackle this particular issue. We should have nutrition sensitive agriculture, promote cultivation of climate resilient biofortified crops, enhance crop diversity. Essentially, we can focus on crop diversity and related aspects. Millets is emerging as another area for nutrition security as well. So we can focus on those community-led nutrition interventions, empower local communities. Okay. Most of the time, the top-down approach doesn't work. We must, start from the bottom. So we have to empower the local communities through what? Through nutrition determinants, which will include soil and water conservation techniques. Okay, as I said, bottom-up approach is there. Is need to be implemented. School-based nutrition programs such as Nutri Pathshala help combat childhood malnutrition by incorporating biofortified grains into school meals. So we have this Nutri Pathshala. So you can have this as a case study in your answer. So just note down Nutri Pathshala, which is school-based nutrition program. Okay. Strengthening social safety nets. As I said, enhancing PDS coverage, midday meal coverage is also very important. And use indigenous food. This is very vital. So use of indigenous food is very important, so that we can target that particular community at the ground level. Role of private sector is also important. They can prioritize nutrition through clear labeling, QR codes on packaging, innovation in fortification, plant-based. So we can promote research through private sector, so that we can have food security along with nutritional security. Tackling climate and economic vulnerabilities. So this is emerging as a very important area. Okay, climate smart agriculture, rural economic opportunities, and promoting gender sensitive policies that build resilience against shocks. So climate smart agriculture is emerging as a important area. Apart from that, we have to have gender sensitive policies that will build resilience in local communities. Awareness campaigns. Again, there can be interactive tools such as My Plate Blast Off game and radio program. So you can, cite such case studies in your answers to support your argument. In conclusion, we can say that nutrition must guide how we shape food systems, economies, and policies. A nourished population is a bedrock of a resilient and equitable society. The challenge is vast, but so is the opportunity. The time to act is now. So essentially, this is the conclusion for that particular article. So as I said, the article gives some very important, innovative solutions from, Nutri Pathshala to My Plate Blast Off. So, you can note down these particular case studies and use those case studies in your answers. So this is the practice question based on that particular article. So just comment your answer in the comment section or otherwise. So essentially, this is it from my side. We means in today's edition we tried to cover some diversified topics. I know, mostly, the news is about the recent India-Pakistan war. That is essentially we are in war, okay. But again, just stay safe, stay secure, and be resilient as our armed forces are. And like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. So stay tuned. Okay. Thank you.